Now, you've kind of touched on this as well, but what's all included in that report? So it's divvied up
Yeah, so there's
between all
typically
the,
about 9 to 10 different sections of the home. So roofing, exterior structure, plumbing, heating, electrical, mechanical, insulation. There's different areas of the home that are identified. So we basically, the report, um, it's easy to read through. It's all tabs. Just click on things and opens and closes different windows and such. But it breaks the house into different sections. So it's very easy to follow through with, if you're looking at the roofing section, if there's a problem with, you're looking for, it's where to go to look for that. You would look in the plumbing section because of a roofing section. So it's very
easy?
identified and very easy to read through. Yeah. Very detailed.
Okay. And are there any limitations to the inspection?
So really, limitations are we're limited to what we can see. We're not allowed to go in and be destructive to the home, so we're just viewing and looking for defects and identifications of problems through visual aspects.
Okay.
So it's really just limited to what we can see. We can't see behind the drywall. We can't see through the brick there. So it's just limited to what we can see there.
Yeah.
Well, and I
And
think that the buyer has to realize that you don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't predict like what you see today. I can't
Right.
predict next week that,
Right.
you
And
know,
there are things
or
that
next
we
month.
can predict. Like if
Yeah.
you see, poor gutters and poor grading, this could lead to basement leakage, right? So there's a crack in the foundation, right, where there's a missing downspout. So there are things that we can, you kind of ABC equals, right, this.
Yeah.
So we can kind of see things like that. But if somebody has, just redone all the grading and redone all the drywall in the basement, we don't know what they're hiding. So if somebody has gone to the extent of really trying to hide something, that is possible, that we just simply can't see because it's not accessible and it's also been covered. There's also what we call latent defects, which are things that they're hidden, they're
Yeah.
within walls, within
Yeah.
attics. Yeah, so there are some limitations. Access, if we can't get into a crawl space because it's only 3 inches high, well, we just
or there's
can't get in
tons
there.
of stuff piled up because I've
Yeah.
had that
Oh,
too, right?
storage. Yeah,
Where
there's hoarder houses
Yeah.
sometimes that you can't possibly see everything, even on a
Right.
vacant house.
so it's helpful to a home inspector,
Absolutely.
Mr. Seller,
Yes.
to have things, the electrical panel, all the things
Yeah.
that, the attic
Yeah.
access, all that
Yeah.
stuff accessible.
Yeah, exactly. If there's something, if there's a box in front of the furnace, I'm going to move the box.
Yes, but if there's
if,
a bunch, yeah.
if it's moving half the house to get to the furnace, and we're not going
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, we don't move furniture because we don't want to damage anything as part of it
Yeah.
as well. But it's also just making sure that we have access to the key components. Electrical, heating, attic
Yeah.
access.
Yeah. So that I'm throwing questions in here
That's
that
fine.
are
That's
on
all
the
right.
list because it just occurs to me as you talk about this. So the whole not seeing behind a wall thing.
Yeah.
So what about the infrared cameras or whatever you call them? I'm
Yeah,
not
thermal
using
cameras.
Thermal cameras.
Yeah.
Are they?
It's a
what do you
great
think?
tool, but I think it's a good tool if you're having a problem to try and identify. Mike Holmes is very famous, but it's not the first tool of the belt, and that's something he'll get out of his truck and he pulls out the thermal camera. You're going to find a problem with every house that, there's little things with every house. No house is perfect. But I think something like a thermal camera is a good tool to have if you're having a moisture problem, but you can't figure out where it's coming from. Then you can track it. But what we're trained to do is identify where that moisture might be anyways, even without the thermal camera.
Right.
So we're trying to identify the problem before it becomes a problem.
I just had a client bring a thermal camera just last week to our listing
Okay.
in town here, and it was pretty neat to
Yeah,
see
the
it.
technology is great, but it's not, again, not 100%. But
Well, yeah, you have to find the source.
right,
Right.
yep,
You stop the source of it, then
Yeah.
you stop it.
yeah, and 90% of the problem is poor gutters and poor downspouts. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so we're on question
We're
number
sailing right
9.
Are we?
Do you provide cost estimates for repairs?
So where we can, we try to give as much information to the customer as we can, the buyer as we can. But if it's pretty limited to depending on the extent of the defect or the damage of the home there, we try to give the best approximate cost to the buyer there.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what it is. Like a furnace is a furnace, and a furnace is typically $5,000. So we can say yes, a new furnace is approximately $5,000, and a new roof is approximately $20,000. So there's certain things that are set costs. But if it's something like, okay, well, we've got some damage here, we need to open up the wall, we need to see what the problem is.
Yeah.
We don't know what that problem is or what it could include. Might have to rip out the bathroom upstairs. So there are, like as Brooke said, where we can, we do. Yeah.
It's where you call in the actual tradesperson then
Yeah, exactly.
to do the quote.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, they're hands-on every day doing that kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah.
So they would have a better, they know the cost of supplies and
Right. And the labor costs. And
labor
everything like
costs,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And that, especially during COVID, those prices were changing daily.
Oh my goodness.
Weren't they?
The cost of material, if you could get
Except
the
there were
material.
no home inspections during COVID.
Right. Yes, and
Right.
I've seen the fallout of that now, where
Yes.
we're coming in
Yeah.
after COVID and doing an inspection because the house is reselling, and there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of problems that weren't identified because nobody did an inspection.
It was quite a frenzy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's typically what a home inspection is. It's kind of it's an oversight of the house, and yeah, there's heating, there's cooling, there's plumbing, there's electrical. So if there's a particular problem in a particular area, that's we kind of refer. Okay, say this is the problem with the electrical, have the electrician look at it. There's a problem with the plumbing, have the plumber look at it.
Right.
So we're kind of like the general GP doctor, where we look at it, and if there's a problem with it, refer it out to the specific.
That is a very good analogy.
That
like
is,
a GP
I like it.
doctor. And then if it's a little more, you need the specialist.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to look at that. Well,
Okay. Can you explain any issues found during the inspection?
maybe things that when we show the house, because we know some stuff obviously, but there'll be things that you're going to find that we would never see,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I
As
think
just
it's-
showing it.
Yeah, and I mean, home inspection is a non-invasive, non-destructive thing, but we are taking off the cover off the electrical panel. So we're looking at the wiring, aluminum wiring, copper wiring, knob and tube wiring, overfused, overheated. There's whole bunch of things that could be wrong with the electrical panel. And as an agent or as a buyer, you're not typically taking the cover off the panel.
No.
Getting up into the attic, looking what type of insulation, looking at structure, looking at, oftentimes I find fire damage or mold damage. That's up in the
Or
attic.
rodents,
Rodents, yeah.
right?
For
Feces
sure.
from rodents.
100%.
Yeah.
So oftentimes we're finding lots of those things in areas that you wouldn't go to. Up on the roof. The roof might look fine from the ground, but when you get up on it, there's always something different up there that you see. And into the attic, you're not bringing your ladder out of your toolbox and having a look up in this. So there's lots of areas we go to, or panels that we open up that just a general walkthrough by a buyer, they wouldn't be opening those things up.
Well, and we learn a lot from you guys
Yeah.
just being at the inspection. We really do. Like, do you inspect things like, well, I probably know the answer to this, but tell everybody, do you inspect things like appliances, septic systems, swimming pools?
Typically, no. Because the appliance might work today, the dishwasher might work today, and it might break tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because it's just the way appliances are. They're not like they were 40 years ago, and they built them to last.
Right.
Nothing
Yeah.
today seems to
Yeah.
be built to last. So we don't inspect appliances. Some inspectors do. I just find it's a very slippery slope as to, because sometimes the appliances don't come with the house, sometimes they do come with the
Yeah.
house. So appliances is one thing we don't. Septic inspections is just something we've never gotten into. There are inspectors that will do septic inspections, much more difficult to inspect because it is a buried system in the ground.
Yeah.
And it could work fine. It has worked fine for the last 20 years, a little old couple that live there. Then you move in a family of 6, the whole system changes how it operates, and it might fail. So it's just not something that's
Right.
100% either.
I think it goes back to the whole call the expert
Yes, absolutely.
for
Yeah.
that. And I mean, we put septic
Clauses.
clauses in the
Yeah.
offer, but yeah. And then even with appliances, so I find when I take a listing and I've noticed, okay, they're not the newest appliances, so I like to put in the realtor remarks, okay, the appliances are as is, because they are 15 years old, 20 years old.
Well, even 5 years old.
Or
now,
5, well,
Nicole.
yeah, 5 years old. But if they're, I just bought these, whatever, Samsung stainless steel, they're, maybe a little different, but it really depends on the situation, on the house, and
Yeah,
because that's the worst thing. We have people that will fight over, okay, now my fridge conked out 2 days later.
Yep.
You know,
And there's all those the situations that you just don't know. Even
No.
water heaters. So water
Yes,
heaters,
yes.
water heaters typically last 15 years, and
Yeah.
I've seen water heaters die after 5 years. So
Yeah.
it just depends on water quality and
Yeah.
a bunch of things. So you just never know with those types of
Well, and we have to remember
appliances and
they
stuff.
are used
yes.
appliances. They're
Yes.
not brand new. There isn't a warranty, you know.
Right.
So
So swimming pools, no.
Swimming pools, no. What we do look at with swimming pools typically is the wiring. Same with like an outbuilding, like a garage or a shop. We would probably look at the structure of the shop as well, but more we're looking at safety. Right?
Okay.
So we're looking at the electrical to the pool and the electrical to the shop and that sort of thing. But as far as, is there any leaks? Is there a cut in the liner? No, that's beyond
Okay.
the scope of what we do as home inspectors, and most home inspectors don't get into anything like that. Again, you have to call the pool guy to have
Call
a look
the
at the
pool guy.
pool. Yeah.
Right. And jet bathtubs
Yes.
or air tubs.
So we do test those. You kind of test GFI. They have to be incorporated with a GFI just because you're dealing with a lot of water and the electrical at the same time. So we do typically fill those up, make sure they're not leaking, to make sure the jets are functioning properly, as well that if that GFI is going to trip the circuit for the tub there.
Yeah. So any equipment within the house, yes, but like a hot
Yeah.
tub in the backyard, even though
Yeah.
I have knowledge on hot tubs,
You
it's
do.
it's not something we typically would inspect as part of a home inspection. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
well, and the other thing too. Sorry, even replacement windows. Old replacement windows can still be decent windows.
Absolutely.
You know, if the seal's not gone, and because I do find sometimes people, they'll go, oh, they're really old,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean they're dead.
No. And what's my comment on windows?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. Glass doesn't leak. What leaks is the frame. Right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
true,
It's the
yes.
caulking, it's the frame, it's the wood around the window. A single pane glass just doesn't leak. Yeah, a double pane's gonna be more energy efficient, but
Yeah.
it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're better
Love
off to
that.
spend $1,000 on attic insulation than $20,000 on windows.
And that's something they think, okay, they have to be brand new windows to be efficient,
Yeah,
but they don't.
no, not. I mean, they are more efficient than
Yeah.
new ones, but
But it's
heat
not-
rises, right?
Yeah.
And the number of attics we go in that need more insulation, it's almost every home.
Yeah.
Insulation's $1,000, and windows are $20,000.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah, and you'll
Yeah.
save more money by insulating the attic
Right.
than replacing every single window in the house.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you offer any guarantees or warranties?
So in the contract, we don't really offer any warranties necessarily. But if you are having issues down the road that you kind of want an explanation to, we can obviously walk you through that as well. But there's no real warranty on the inspection there.
Yeah, because it's difficult with the weather we've been having lately.
Yes,
Oh, it's been
true.
It could be a brand new roof, and 2 weeks from now we have a huge windstorm and your roof leaks. That's more a nature-related thing than a defect in the roof, right?
Right.
So there's difficult to warranty. I mean, not that the inspection is good for the day of the inspection. It's definitely good for longer than that. But it's having common sense as well. If you just had a huge hailstorm and you got damage, it's because of the hail, not because of the fault in the home inspection.
Yeah, like this winter has been horrible for,
Ice buildup.
yeah, like we've had so many
Water
issues
problems.
that have happened, or eaves coming crashing down, or and I to calm down the cellar. It's like, you know what? Because we're finding everybody's having this
Yeah, it was a big
similar
problem this
issue
year, yeah.
because it's happened to everybody. It's happened to us, you
Yes,
know.
yeah.
So it's not necessarily the house; it's the conditions,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that surrounded why it happened, right?
Yeah, ice buildup this year was particularly bad because we had such a long winter.
Yeah.
Didn't get that January thaw to melt the snow,
Yeah.
and the ice kept building up, and then we had roof failures, we had gutter failures, we had water leaks, even more this year than previous years because of the winter that we had this year. But what we're trying to look at is to look at a house in July and tell that there's going to be an ice problem in December by deficiencies with what the home inspection is. So that's not something you normally see, driving down the street in July. Like, well, that house is going to have ice in winter. But that's what our training shows us, how to identify those homes where those problems are going to occur.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty. So, what happens if an issue is found after the inspection? So,
Depends what issues are, but definitely we would like to be contacted and say there's water in the basement is always the big one. Oh, we got water in the basement, so let's come in and we'll see why do you have water in the basement. Was it something that we missed during the inspection? Was there a crack in the foundation that was missed, or was there something else that caused that? And then at the time of the inspection, was it accessible? Was it visible? Was it hidden by the homeowner? Have you done something since, did you put a pool in the backyard since we were here and did the inspection and now the grading has changed or something? So you have to not just look at the issue, it's like what caused the issue and was it present at the time of the inspection? Was it visible? So if there's something that was missed, that's why we carry errors and omissions insurance.
Right.
So $2 million policy to cover problems that we've never had to use, touch wood. So,
Yeah.
But
I think that's plastic.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
plastic. But you have to have that in place for those situations. And I think it comes back sometimes to people's expectations because they watch Mike Holmes on TV.
Yes.
And, oh, well, this is what Mike would do. Well, yeah, but we can't cut a hole in the drywall to, that's not why we're there. So it's a visual inspection, it's non-invasive, non-destructive. So it comes back to what is the issue and was it possible for us to identify this, or should we have identified this during the inspection?
I had a client call me. They had a home inspection, not you guys. But anyways, they were told there was no knob and tube wiring in this house.
Yeah.
And the access to the attic was drywalled over.
Yeah.
So there was no hatch. They since then opened it up.
Yep.
And there was a junction box with the knob and tube wiring into the junction, and then the
wire coming out.
yeah. So they were a little panicked, and
Yeah.
of course,
But again, that would not have been visible during the inspection,
No,
right? Because
no.
we test for knob and tube at outlets, but you can't test it at the light fixtures. I mean, unless you start taking all the light fixtures apart, which is outside of the scope of an inspection. And if there's no access to the attic, how are we going to get up there and
Yeah.
find it, right? So it's common sense, right?
How do you feel about I coming across this a lot where there are people who have renovated close the attic
Yeah.
access,
yes,
Yeah, they should.
which is not good.
No.
Right?
No, it's actually required in the building code to have an attic access, and there's a certain size requirement. It is a new construction, so if it's an old farmhouse, it doesn't have to meet code.
Yeah.
But to eliminate it is not good because you want to be able to get in there to
Yeah.
look at stuff, right?
Like, how do you know then if something's leaking or
Yeah, you just don't
So then
until
I've
it's coming
said-
through the drywall.
yeah? So then I said, you know what? If
Yeah.
they have the means, or people in the family that are in construction or
Yeah.
whatever, cut one in, put
Yes.
one in,
Yeah,
because you're going to
definitely.
want it.
Yes, but when you put it in, make sure it's well sealed and
Yeah.
well secured because usually a lot of heat loss at the hatch
Yeah.
if it's not done
Have
properly.
it done right by an expert.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows what they're doing. Don't
Yeah.
just right.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right.
I have another question. I have a couple questions. We didn't touch on wet inspections,
right?
which is,
Yes.
you explain what that
So
is.
WET is an acronym for Wood Energy Technology Transfer. So basically it's an inspecting a wood burning appliance or a solid fuel burning appliance such as a wood stove or fireplace or a wood furnace or a pellet stove, anything that burns solid fuel. So most insurance companies are wanting any wood burning appliance inspected and provide a wet inspection, wet being wood
Yes.
energy technology, not
Yes.
not pouring water on it.
Yes.
So I was a wet inspector
Yeah.
for 20 years, and I stopped doing it because insurance companies, like homeowners insurance companies, not my insurance company, the
Yeah.
homeowners insurance company, the liability just becomes too high. So I could
Yeah.
inspect your stove today,
Yeah.
and in 5 years from now, there's a problem where your house burns down or you have a chimney fire,
Yeah.
and your insurance company wants to sue me because I inspected the stove and said it was okay. It was okay on the day I inspected it. It was clean. It was safe.
Yeah.
But for 5 years, you burned old tires and whatever in it and never cleaned the chimney once. And that's why you had a failure.
Yeah.
And the insurance company's still coming after me.
And it's not like you can certify it. It's
No.
not certified.
No,
it's an inspection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big
It was
misunderstanding.
a
People
huge
wanted
misconception.
to be it was certified by the
Yeah, I
manufacturer.
want the certificate. There
No.
not one. They don't exist.
Yeah, it's certified by the manufacturer.
Yes.
And it's inspected by the inspector. but it's typically, inspecting that it was installed properly and it's working condition. But
Yeah.
as going forward, it's just impossible to insure
Yeah.
something like a
Insurance
car.
companies should have wet inspectors.
Yeah, well, they used to. Fire departments used to
I
do the
thought so,
inspection.
too.
Fire
I thought
departments,
they
insurance
did.
companies, but nobody wants the liability.
Yeah.
So it just got to be too much of a headache. So we stopped doing them, unfortunately.
How do you feel about these big shops or the man caves, and the walls are all Trescore, and then the wood stove is in front of the Trescore? I see it all the time, and there's no steel or metal or.
As long as the clearance is there. So most stoves are going to be, if it's a certified stove that you bought at the hardware store or whatever, if it's a certified stove, it's going to be 14 inches or 18 inches from a combustible material. So as long as you've got that spacing that's required by the manufacturer from anything combustible, it should be fine.
But you can see on the walls that they've all melted, or
So that would tell me
So it's
either.
not-
Yeah, so
It's
the
either
clearance
too-
isn't correct.
Yeah, the clearance is
Yeah.
not correct. Yes, exactly.
Or put steel, something around it.
I
Yeah.
think they should, but
Right. Yes.
Trescore is
expensive.
Plastic. Yeah, it's expensive. It's just
yeah,
plastic.
expensive plastic. It looks
Yes.
great.
It does look great.
Love it. It's a nice clean finish,
Yeah.
right? You don't want it warping, or kind of like when you put your barbecue out on the deck and your vinyl siding starts to,
Shrink
right?
up and
Because it's, yeah.
Seen that many
You
times.
can always tell
Me
where the
too.
barbecue was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in situations like that, I mean, ideally, you'd want a steel or a stone backing,
Yeah.
not a I mean, common sense.
Yeah.
Plastic's going to melt. Even if it does have that clearance, if you're cranking that stove as hot as you can get it, it's probably overheating. And
Yeah.
yeah, because they do test the stoves in laboratories, and they're tested to a certain standard and a certain temperature to maintain and to get that clearance that's required. But yeah, it's common sense. I think it comes back to a lot of what people are lacking.
Okay. And what about galvanized plumbing? Insurance companies don't like it.
No.
But what about, just a small section leading to the outside? Are you concerned with that, or?
So the issue with galvanized steel is it rusts from the inside out. So you're not going to see the issue until it's too late, just because it's rusting from the inside out. So by the time you see the rusty pipe, you've already had the water contaminated with the rust inside the pipe. So the insurance company don't like it just because there is that contamination within the water. It's not necessarily as big of a deal if it's going to an exterior tap. Don't drink from the hose. This is a big thing that my dad told me growing up. Might be because of that, I don't know. But it's a bigger issue if it is coming from the supply piping, say in the crawl space or the basement, and then that water is getting fed through the rest of the house, because then all the water supply is contaminated.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and the problem with galvanized piping is where I commented it rusts from the inside out. So when you start to see that rust on the outside, you start to get pinhole leaks, and then those leaks, develop within the wall going up to the second floor bathroom. So if it's just going out to the hose in the basement, you probably would see that. I would still replace it. But you're going to see that. You're not going to have the damage that you would have from a pipe going up through like a wall cavity up to the second floor.
Yeah. And if it's exposed in the basement and just going out, it's an easy fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how many
But
homes I've been
insurance
to.
doesn't like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know how many homes I've been to where the plumber's been in and he's installed new copper piping or new PEX piping, and he's attached it to galvanized, and there's 6 feet of galvanized. Like, why wouldn't you get rid of
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That is very true.
And what about knob and tube wiring? Is it concerned with it? Get rid of it?
Well,
or-
insurance companies typically will not insure it. Knob and tube wiring is actually safe if it's in its original state. The problem, knob and tube wiring is used back in the 30s, and just today's lifestyle, it doesn't mix with knob and tube wiring because we have lots of appliances and lots of electronics, and everything needs a ground. So knob and tube wiring does not provide a ground for safety. So it's safe if it's in its original condition, but the problem that we get into is a lot of times there's been junctioned and things added on, and now it's just not being used properly. But the big concern is the safety aspect with no ground.
And when you talk about ground, I've seen a lot of panel boxes where they add, so it's 2-pronged throughout the house, and they add some kind of little.
The GFCI is down.
Is
the
that what it?
basement. Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so that will act as a ground for you on an ungrounded circuit, and that's allowed under the electrical code, but it comes back to the insurance company. And that's where insurance companies actually get it wrong. They ask if there's knob and tube wiring in the house because there's no ground, and knob and tube is very common for that. But there's other types of wiring that don't have a ground. Like 2-wire Romex wiring also doesn't have a ground. So the issue is not having a ground, not knob and tube. But they always ask for very specific, is there knob and tube? No, but there's ungrounded wires, which is the same thing.
Right.
And then those little, what'd you say, GFIs?
GFIs.
So that's
That's allowed by electrical code.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to, like, okay, it's a beautiful old home. You don't want to rewire the whole house. Do you have to rewire the whole house?
Comes back to insurance. Insurance is always the pain. So
Right.
electrical code says you don't have to because you can tie it through a GFCI and make it safe.
So why wouldn't that be okay?
Because insurance companies make their own rules.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that they don't want knob and tube wiring.
Yeah.
But they forget about Romex wiring, or they forget
Or
about
aluminum.
Or
What about aluminum wiring?
Aluminum wiring, they don't want it. But there's ways to deal with that as well, with proper connectors and
Yeah.
antioxidant paste and stuff like that.
So you could have aluminum wiring. Okay, insurance aside, you could have aluminum wiring, and it's not the end of the world.
No,
Right. No. Yeah.
Like you can continue to
As long
have
as
it and
as
be
long-
safe.
As long as it's treated properly, yeah.
Right.
So with proper connectors and proper paste, so you don't get any corrosion and stuff like that. Yeah. But then
That's
you
interesting.
typically would want an ESA or Electrical Safety Authority inspection to make sure that everything. That's what your insurance company is going to ask for is an ESA.
So an
inspection.
ESA inspector would say it's okay if it is okay.
Yes,
So you would
however,
think
they're
that
getting
would be
less.
okay
Yes, but
for
ESA
insurance.
inspections are getting less and less. I don't know if you've just read one of them lately.
Yes. Oh,
They're very limited in
Yes.
what they say, and it's again reducing their liability. I've inspected it, and they don't say it's okay. They say no deficiencies were noted.
that makes
they're
life
very
really
limited.
hard.
Yeah.
it does.
Well, it all comes back to insurance again. I keep haggling on that, but insurance doesn't want any liability, but then so they want everybody else to assume that liability.
Yeah, that's it makes it really tough for a homeowner to know, for sure.
Couple more questions.
Yes.
Asbestos. So we have vermiculite with asbestos. You could have that older
Tile floor.
tiled floor, ceiling tiles, and the masonite siding.
Yes.
And pipe wrap on the
Oh,
boiler,
yes.
boiler
With the
system.
and they have to go in hazmat suits to
Yeah.
rip off the tape.
Yeah.
Or
So
just even just the paper wrap on the ductwork.
The paper wrap on the ductwork. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
so get rid of it, or what's
Yes.
Do you have to go in with hazmat suit
Yeah.
and rip off the tape?
Yeah. I've always been a very common sense type person, and most asbestos products are fine unless you disturb it. So when you disturb it is when you cause the problem.
Yeah.
But insurance companies think the other way. They want it gone. They don't care how much it costs to get it gone. They just want it gone because they don't want to have to deal with potential fallout, somebody down the road getting sick from it. So I'm always leave it alone unless you have to get rid of it for insurance purposes.
so if it's in the attic and you cover it up with whatever,
Cellulose or whatever blown in.
or just
Whatever.
boards of
Yeah.
it's totally secured, so it's fine then.
Yes and no. In an attic's a little bit different than like in a basement, because in an attic you have air movement from ventilation from the roof. But if it's encapsulated, if it's sealed, you got your drywall, then you got your insulation, and then you got a layer of plywood. So now you've got 4 inches of asbestos insulation between 2 solid surfaces. It's not being disturbed. To me, again, common sense is it's fine, but the insurance companies are probably going to say they want that taken out at a
And-
cost of $15,000
Yeah.
or more. Yes.
And will you get samples if you see it, or if
Yeah.
the realtor?
Vermiculite, you will.
You're asking me, or you're asking my insurance company?
I'm
No,
asking
you.
you.
Oh,
Not allowed.
Yeah, insurance
Oh,
doesn't want
yes.
us sampling it because
anymore.
because I might
I used to
take
do
it from here, but this little
Yeah.
bit over here had.
Oh, gotcha.
But I typically will grab a couple samples for you to.
In a bag, and then we send it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where do you
That's-
send it, Nicole?
Well, it just depends on what lab. There's many labs out
Yeah.
there. That you can
Mississauga,
send it to,
London,
yeah,
Guelph. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually it's next day turnaround. You can do same day turnaround if it's urgent for
Yeah.
a deal. Yeah.
What about the floor tiles? Do you ever have you ever sent them away to get
Not a floor
samples?
tile, because
Floor
most
tiles,
people
yeah.
like, I'm gonna just floor right over top
And
of
that's
it,
leave
which is
it
what
undisturbed.
all
yeah,
you
yeah.
should do, right?
Yeah, those are very hard. I mean, they're in better shape than my floors.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's
Yeah, they
such
are.
hard material.
Yeah. They're
so
just
the-
ugly
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, so just cover it. Ceiling tiles are the harder ones. So some ceiling tiles have asbestos, and there's hundreds of different styles, so you can't tell which is which. And typically people are coming in doing renovations, they're pulling down ceiling tiles, so that's when they're disturbing it.
Yeah.
right?
I need another sip of water.
Yeah.
I'm
So
sorry.
before you start pulling ceiling tiles, it's
Yeah.
best to sample it. Floor tiles, I would just cover.
right. And so then what about the asbestos exterior, the slate tiles,
Yeah.
can you just cover that with vinyl siding? Do you have to take it all off?
I would personally cover it, but you can take it all off. But then that's when you're disturbing again,
Right.
right? So if you
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Would you not just cover it?
well, and typically a house that has that type of asbestos cement board siding,
Masonite, you're saying?
masonite, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very. They're older buildings, obviously,
Yeah.
and not very well insulated. So what I would typically do is insulate over top of that, like do a spray
Right.
foam on it, strap it, spray foam
Oh,
it, and
okay.
then do vinyl siding. So now
Right.
your spray foam is sealing and encapsulating everything. You've increased the R value of the house, and you've got new siding on the
Mm-hmm.
outside without disturbing the siding that was there originally.
Yeah. Right. That's good.
That's good to know.
information, eh?
Yeah.
Rourke,
Yes.
my dear. It's like, oh my God. So, what made you want to become a home inspector? Is it because of your dad, or did you have
Yes.
an interest anyway? in
Absolutely,
that?
it's more because of my dad there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that I grew up kind of thinking about there. I
Yeah.
didn't really fully understand what my dad did
Well, yeah,
as a
yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
But then I got older and understood what he did, and it was interesting to me. But then through COVID there, like you guys said, the home inspection market kind of died off. So he actually opened up another business there. And then
Yes.
after after COVID there, home inspections picked back up, and he was kind of struggling to balance both businesses there. So that's when I stepped in and helped him out with the home inspection side, and I
Yeah.
been loving it ever since. So it's
Well, we're very grateful that you decided to
yes,
do that
yes.
too.
I've been liking it. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. And whoever needs a hot tub.
Yes, that's the other
Yes.
business
You might
that he
as well
opened
plug
there.
it too,
yeah.
right?
Yes, Northern Leisure Port Elgin, hot
Northern
tubs,
Leisure Port
saunas,
Elgin.
swim spas, we have it all.
Oh,
Right
okay.
on. Well, that's great.
Do you have a website then?
Yeah, Northern Leisure Port Elgin.
Northern Leisure Port
Port
Elgin.
NorthernLeisurePortElgin.com. Yeah, so hot tubs, saunas. We have a showroom in Port Elgin, and yeah, so I juggle my time between hot tubs, saunas, and home inspections.
And now you have work.
and he's doing home inspections, and also we did a hot tub install this morning, so
Yes.
he's juggling that as well. So
I've chuckled a couple of times when you've pulled up to do a home inspection for me, and you'd have a hot tub on your
Yes,
trailer on
yeah,
the back, and then I'd say, "See, this is why you use him, because you get a free hot tub."
no, the other way. You buy a hot tub, you get a free home inspection.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
The other way around.
Well, I don't know if we have any other questions. This has been really in depth and informative and thorough, just like you are when you do your inspections. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Do you
Thanks,
guys have questions?
No,
yeah.
so I
Do you have
think-
questions about home inspecting?
Do not have any, no.
No, I think it's been great, and it is a good tool for people. As we're kind of briefly talked about as well, it's not just for buyers and sellers. People that have been in their homes for 10 years. I have,
Yeah.
seniors that just don't understand. Their husband passed away, and now she's like, I don't know how to do with what do I need to do? So
Yeah.
we'll go in and we'll do like a maintenance inspection. Okay, well, your roof is good, but you're going to need a furnace. So it's just educating them and helping them
That-
along, right?
That is so true. You don't just need it for buying and selling real estate. No,
Anybody
that's a
that owns a
really
home.
good point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had that situation where
Yeah.
the spouse passed away and the spouse did everything. So now I don't know what I need to do. Rather than, I want to stay in my home, I don't want to sell it. So,
Yeah.
and we're not there to sell them a roof or sell them a furnace.
No.
So if you call the roofing guy, he might try and sell you a roof, right?
Right.
Yeah,
so
you have
it's an
no-
unbiased opinion.
It really is. That makes perfect sense when you think about that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess at this point we want to really thank you guys again for coming, because we do know how important and valuable your time is, and to take an hour out of your day for us to do this.
We
Thank
appreciate the
you.
invite.
It's so
appreciate it.
helpful,
Yes.
and
Thanks
it's
for
going to
having us,
help.
yeah.
It's going to help anybody who's watching. Maybe you want to tell us how to reach you, and maybe even touch on, what does a typical home inspection cost?
Right.
If
Yeah.
you want to do that too,
So you can reach out to us by phone numbers there. My phone number is 519-313-8268.
okay, back up and go slower.
Yes, no problem. So you can reach out to us by text or phone call there. My cell number is 519-313-8268. And Jim's here is 519-323-8008. Also feel free to reach out to it on Facebook there, Complete Home Inspections.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then what do people expect to pay for a home inspection these days?
It really depends on the home, but an average cost is $500.
Yeah.
Yeah. So small homes might be a little bit less. Larger home would be a bit more, but
Yeah.
it depends on the home itself. So around $500 is
Yeah.
the home inspection. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well, okay. Thank you again.
Yes.
And stay tuned for next time when Heather and I have our Sassy and Soul podcast. I get it mixed up sometimes with another word. So anyway, thanks again, guys.
All right,
Thank
thanks for having us.
you.
Yes.
All right, thank you.